Recording in progress from Sardinia.
From Sardinia, yes, which
Okay.
is a little cloudy and rainy today, but so beautiful. It's amazing here.
I'm jealous of the clouds and the rain. Like, it's supposed to be autumn coming into winter, right? Or fall coming into winter over here. And it's fucking red hot. It's like 22 degrees, which
That's
is hot for me.
awesome.
All right. Don't judge me.
Yeah.
That's my
No,
natural
I
habitat is
love
in
that.
England.
We just spent a couple months in Bali, and I'm from Chicago. Chicago's cold, but I love being in places where you just sit and sweat. It's like so healing. You're getting all the bullshit out of your body. I love it. I love being hot, really hot.
So I'm going to kind of agree with you, but also tell you you're wrong at the same time. I'm joking. I think the sauna is phenomenal for that. Like, that's what I
Yeah.
use the sauna for. Like, I kind of say I'm just gonna go like hate myself and beat myself up for 20 minutes or 40 minutes or however long you're in there. I'm just like, I just sit in there and be like, pretty much have a fist fight with myself. You know, you split yourself in two and you're just kicking 7 bells and nonsense out of yourself, and you come out and you just feel so much lighter.
Yeah.
There is something about it with like sweating and getting rid of it. Although I would prefer the cold.
Have you been to Chicago? Have you been to the States?
No, technically I've been to Florida when I was like 7. But we only went to Orlando, right, with Disneyland. So no, I've not really been to like mainland states. Like, I keep saying I'm gonna go do the fucking tour or whatever. I need to bring my brother in. He's a home lad. Like, he never really wants to leave Manchester, but at the same time, like maybe once every 5 months, he'll be like, you know what? A road trip around America would be pretty cool. I'll be like, okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. Let me figure this out and we'll get it done. But no, not really.
Chicago's a good place. I mean, Chicago's different than the rest of America because it's in the center of the country. It's still a huge city, and it's nice people. Like, everyone's grounded, everyone's kind, like everyone. It's a different vibe than the rest of the country. And I lived kind of all over the country. But yeah, Chicago's a really amazing spot, but it's cold in the winter, and I haven't been home for winter in like 8 years. I'm like, I always travel in the winter.
Did you chase the sun?
Yeah, I chased the sun for so long. I lead a lot of retreats, and I lead a lot of retreats to Israel in about January.
Wow.
And I'll lead a trip there, and then I'll like stay on that side of the world for a while. I try to get to Asia as often as I can too.
Why did you go to Israel?
It's the Mecca. I mean, it's like the holiest place in the whole entire world. I've spent probably collectively a year and a half or 2 years living in Israel. I mean, I've led probably 15, 20 trips to Israel. I've lived there for 6 months straight, one stretch. I was just there my husband and I just ran the Jerusalem Marathon. We're heading back there next week. I mean, there's no energy like it. There's no land like it. There's no place like it. It's everything. It's everything to everyone. And it's such a feeling that people need to experience.
Wow. It is a fascinating piece of land, you know. Like, it's definitely something about it. You know, we've got all these old stories that come out of this place. Whether you're religious or not, it doesn't matter. Like, there's definitely something about this piece of land that encompasses all these different like areas and countries, right? Regardless of your political ideologies and all that crap. Like, I don't care. You know, I'm not here to discuss that. But there's definitely, I'm fascinated by like, quote unquote, the old world, right?
Yeah.
And the teachings and the wisdom that we've kind of forgotten. And there's definitely something there that I'm interested in. You know, I want to go see the Wailing Wall and you know, all that type of nonsense. I want to read every book of the major religions.
Yeah, I mean, you start with the Torah. You know a lot about Judaism and Christianity, right? And then you can start with the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, Israel is the land to the Christians, Muslims, and Jews. I'm a truth seeker, so I do care about the origin story. I do care a lot about, I think so often I'm a very spiritual person. I think you are as well. And I built
Yeah.
a very big spiritual business. So I think any spiritual person that goes to Israel and like connects to the land, you're going to feel that energy. But if you're also just somebody who, um, like we always say, I don't want to get involved politically, but a feeling state doesn't always need to be political. So if you love a land, you love a land, and then there's a conversation there. But yeah, I think if anybody wants to learn about religion, I mean, start with the Torah, because that's going to get you into Judaism and Christianity right away.
I think that's gold, what you just said.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go
Yeah.
political. I think that's fucking gold. You know,
Yeah.
like I I'm obsessed with people's like perspectives, right? Because I think perception is reality, right? In my world, in what I know to this day, I think perception is reality, right? And I'm fascinated in the sense of, wow, what are you experiencing right now? Right? Because I'm like, oh, I could be experiencing like ABC, you know, complete joy. I'm like, and you're like, wow, I'm like overwhelmed. I'm a little bit sad. And you're like, we're experiencing the same thing, you know, and I'm like, I'm obsessed with that.
It's so beautiful. There's in Judaism, it's called cheshbon hanefesh, and it translates into accounting of the soul. And it's something that I teach a lot in a lot of my programs. I actually have a program that I'm launching right now, and it's for anyone who wants to go really, really deep. Like that's the premise of it. If you want to know thyself, if you want to do that deep work, it can start with cheshbon hanefesh, that accounting of the soul. And so often, especially in Western culture, and I'd be curious to what you think of this as well, we are so obsessed with happiness, right? Like, I'm going to do
Mhm.
whatever I can to be happy. I'm going to meditate and eat healthy. I'm going to have a fulfilling relationship, fulfilling jobs. Like, everything that I do is to live in my joy and live in my happiness. And what I think, or maybe what I've learned from living, I lived in India for a while as well. I
Wow.
spent a lot of time in Bali. I spent like really a lot of time in Asia. I'm very devoted to the yogic path as well. And when you integrate both of these like feeling states, the accounting of the soul, how we perceive um, happiness in maybe our more Western culture, feeling anything is good, right? Like, I think it's so important to feel bad sometimes, and to feel boredom or understimulation or anxiety or moments of depression, because it's just pieces allowing you to connect to this human experience. It's like what you said, connecting to the present moment even.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. And it's kind of weird because I got there through going through some fucking weird ass times upstairs, right? You know, you're like you're rolling the dice, and if it comes up snake eyes, you're no longer gonna play this game anymore. You know what I mean? And you kind of come out the other side of it. You whether you call it a spiritual awakening or whatever you call it doesn't matter. You come out of whatever you were experiencing, right? And you're like, oh well, I was still living, right? And if you go, okay, well, if I can go from complete depression, like I'm gonna go jump off this cliff, to I am absolutely ecstatic. I could like burst with like happiness right now, right? And everything in between, and you can kind of pendulum in between. I think that's life, man. You know, I think we're supposed to be able to do that. And every time you go there, you just develop more tools to be able to one, cope with it, to communicate it, right? Like everybody's been in that state where you're like, oh, I'm really sad. But then you get it, like, especially dudes, we get aggressive, right? Because that's the only thing that we know is, oh, let's punch it in the face, or let's put a hole in a wall, or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, Steve. You know, like you're a complete barbarian, right? It's 2022, not like 22 AD, you know, let's work through this now. Um, but I think it's important, you know, and I think um okay, here's a concept that kind of like batted around my own head, and I'm interested to hear what you got to say about this, right? And I usually tell this to kids, right? I coach a lot of kids, and kind of I'm related to a lot of skills, like kind of go in, talk to them, give them a high five, make sure they're doing all right, etc., etc. Um, so like the arena and the cave, right? So the cave being the emotion, the feelings, the quiet stillness, right? The all the stuff that we would class as quote unquote feminine, right? And then the arena being the opposite, the irrational, sometimes aggressive, it's quite tangible, moving around, it's hyped up, right? We would quote unquote call it masculine. I was like, I think we need something for both, right? I think everybody needs to move their body in some sort of way. We are like physical beings, like living in the physical realm, right? Like we get up, we move around, we eat, we move, right? We're not completely AI yet. So I think we need to do something, whether it's like I like hiking or weightlifting or like swimming in the ocean or yoga or whatever, it doesn't matter. Do something. And then I also think we need the other one. You need to write, draw, like meditate, something where you no longer rely on that super hyped up, right, response to everything. Like, because that was me. I was like, oh, I'm feeling something weird now. I need to go lift some weights. I was like, Alex, you can't lift weights 24 hours a day. Like, you're going to end up breaking. I was like, that's not going to work, mate. I was like, well, what else do I do? Do I punch a motherfucker? I was like, well, that's not going to help, Alex, is it? Like, you need to figure this out. So I think we need something of both, right? I think we need a tool that we can use to understand ourselves and the emotion that we're feeling on both ends of the spectrum.
I would call that alignment. So absolutely, I'm with you in that conversation, and this balance between the masculine and feminine. We get really, I would even say, caught up in it, but alignment is, and this is attached to my purpose completely, and I'll just share with you my dharma, my purpose. The reason I'm here is to help people wake up to their truth of who they really are, and to create their most authentic and aligned life that reflects that. So for me, I live nomadically with my partner. I have this big business. I'm writing a book right now. I mean, that's what feels really good for me. I do yoga, I run, I move my body a lot, but I also chill and I read a lot of books as well. That lifestyle, and similar to you, Alex, I mean, you have been where you've been for the last couple of years, but you also have that nomad background. You lift weights, you're really fit, you move your body, you're immersed in that culture. That is, and then we're both entrepreneurs. That would suck to my best friend. She would hate that. She would hate nothing more than sleeping in different places and being responsible for her work, like being an entrepreneur. And I think it's so important because early on in my business or my spiritual development, I kept thinking, why doesn't everybody want to do yoga? It feels so good. Or why doesn't everybody want to? I mean, I'm still hung up on this. Like, why doesn't everybody eat healthy? Like, isn't that like, it's so obvious, right? It like it increases your vitality, increases your prana. You feel so good. But that is not people's purpose. I mean, that's not what they're here to do. They're here to maybe work for somebody else in a job that's fulfilling to them and sleep in the same bed every single night. And that's like where their alignment is, because they find their purpose in their work, or they find their purpose in their family, or they find purpose in their community. So I think yes to everything you've said. And it's what you've said is just the definition of alignment, right? Just what feels and looks aligned for each person.
Wow. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really, I mean, even this pandemic was just such a wake up call for so many people. I mean, call it what you want, but for me, it opened up kind of, I mean, I know it was a really hard time for a lot of people, but the stories I hear from my clients and even the reflection of my life from it, it opened up a couple silver linings for a lot of people. And I don't know if this is true for you, but I've met so many people who have found their soulmates during the pandemic, or their dream jobs during the pandemic, or it gave them permission to live remotely or nomadically, or more of an alternative lifestyle. And it gave people time to just connect to their passions and their projects and who they, I think, really are at their core, because we're constantly go, 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 go. And I don't know if you're on, this is such like a big trend on TikTok. And I know you found me through Instagram, but I just think Instagram or social media in general is such an exciting place, because you have all this opportunity at your fingertips, and you can just kind of learn anything in a moment just from opening up your phone. And it's a free app that sits on your phone, but this idea of slow living is catching on. And I think people are going to be really transformed by that as well. Something I talk about all the time is cycle syncing and women's hormones and how women work because we're so programmed to live like a man. I heard this amazing analogy recently where it's like men are like cars on the road, right? Roads are meant for cars. You're driving down the road and the car is on the road because the road is meant for the car. And women are like bicycles. Technically, by law, you are supposed to share the road with a bicycle. Technically, by law, bicycles are allowed on the road. But if you're on a bicycle and you're driving next to a car, you can maybe get hit, or you might get shoved out of the way, or the priority in the right of way might go to the car, even though it's supposed to go to the bicycle. And I think like these little things are slowly fading away, which is really good to hear. And also, we cannot work the same, not even just women versus men, but just people in general. We're driven in different ways, we're energized by different things. It's just not, it's shifting. I think it's just shifting, and people are waking up and they're just done doing the things that aren't in alignment to them. And if it's not in alignment, it's going to fall away.
I think the pandemic and lockdowns and all that type of nonsense made people question things a lot more, right? It was like, okay, yeah, okay, we'll do this, yeah, no problem. And then it's like, oh, now you want us to do that? Okay, we'll do that, yeah. And oh, now you've changed the rules again. I was like, wait, hold on a minute, like, what the fuck do you want us to do? Like, you want us to go through door number 1, now number 2, now number 3? It's like, come on, make your mind up. And it's kind of got people in this kind of state of, okay, why do you want us to do that? All right. And then that only takes time to them to ask that question for the person in the mirror and be like, okay, why are we doing this? I do a 9 to 5, I commute an hour and a half to get there. Right. So I got to leave the house by 7:30. I commute an hour and a half back, 2 hours, maybe because of the traffic. It's 3.5 hours, each day. Like, I'm not getting anything back. I'll get home, I'm miserable, health is down the gutter, not seeing your kids. And you're like, why are you doing this? And I think that is one of the benefits. There's pros and cons to everything, right? But I think that's one of the benefits to the pandemic is people are just asking more questions. Right? Questions can be harmless. It just depends on what's behind them, right? And I think people need to ask themselves more questions.
Wayne Dyer has this free YouTube movie called The Shift. And in the beginning of the movie, he talks about how we go to work, and when we're at work, we're really competitive and really direct, and we're working really hard. And then when we come home, we're trying to not be that person, but we come home and we're also really competitive, but we're with like our partner and our kids, and we're really hard and we're really tough, and we're not meaning to be, but it's who we were in the morning. And I think as humans, we think we can separate that, but you can't really separate that. And something that was really positive in the pandemic is everybody was forced to be at home. So you were kind of more forced to be this grounded person, right? This calmer person, because you're not forced to go into the office. You're not forced to do your 3-hour commute. I mean, just the commuting, you get so much of your life back.
Yeah, and I think it helps because we've now got to a space where, we all saw our parents do it, right? And they saw their parents working with their hands, and they saw their parents like basically bleeding for food. It's like, well, I don't want to do that. Oh, cool. I'm going to work every hour, I've got to work with my hands. Okay, cool. And then our parents saw that. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Right. So I'm going to do this corporate thing that we're told is the way to go. And now we're like, fuck, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, what else have we got? Oh, we'll do this like kind of internet thing. Right. And we'll try and figure it out and kind of go with the flow and don't worry about getting a mortgage and a wife and a kid by 19. Right. It's like, no, just go figure it out.
Wow.
That's scary. Like a kid at 19. No, you're a kid. You're a kid having a kid.
Yeah. And for anyone who's listening, I mean, trust the timing of your life. Like, I think that's one of the most important mantras that we can have today is everything's working in divine time, and you have to learn to relax into your own life. And we can't. We love to control, we love to force, we love to push, but it's not going to be in alignment, or it's not going to be of highest good. You're going to get something that, you're happy in the moment, but something way better was in store for you.
Mm,
So we have to learn to kind of just trust the timing of your life and also relax into your life a little bit. Just like
mm.
take the edge off.
Yeah, 100%. And that doesn't mean like don't work hard, right? That yeah, let's be honest, you have to work hard at anything you do, right? But it
Yeah.
also means don't grind yourself into the damn ground, right? You can take your foot off, like, oh, okay, maybe it's gonna come to me. And there's times, honestly, there's times where I'm like, I am working so much and I'm barely getting anywhere. I'm swimming against the tide here. I'm doing everybody else's work. Like I'm saying stuff and they're like, yeah, I'll get back to you 4 weeks later. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you have
Yeah.
a week where you're like, right, I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to set myself, right. I'm going to write my to-do list for the week on a Sunday. And I can't do any more than that. And the next thing you know, you get so many more things coming back to you, flooding emails back of like, oh, this opportunity, that person. I'm like, oh, okay. Sometimes it's going to happen in its due course. And sometimes I'm not going to be able to fight against the tide.
I just think I'm experiencing that right now. I'm with you. Like I said, I'm in a program launch, and my agreement with God, my agreement with the universe, my agreement with myself is I'm literally only going to share this program with the world if it feels fucking amazing launching it. Because
Mm,
as entrepreneurs, when you launch something, that's the bulk of the work. That's a lot of the energy. It takes like a lot of gusto to launch something. It takes time and energy, and like you're so enthralled in it. And we put like a lot of our worth behind a launch, which I encourage a lot of people to not do, because that's not of highest good.
yeah.
But the thing is about you and I is I'm visible, right? Like if you Google me, you will find so much material. If you're on Instagram, you have 3,000 posts to bin on. If you're on TikTok, I can help you heal with a free video, right? So I think there's a difference of, I know that if I'm showing up on social media and I'm sharing high quality information, and I'm teaching people how they can meditate or shift their thoughts to positive or scale their business to 100K, because I do both the business coaching and the spiritual coaching.
Mhm.
As long as that free content is available, then this more of it's just understanding what's going to get people in your programs or through the door, right? Because if I'm showing up on social media and people are resonating with it, that's the only thing that I need to do to get people to the next level. So it's just knowing what that line is for everybody in their business. What are you working on right now? What are you sharing with the world?
I do a lot of things, like I'm one of those guys that um, can't do one thing, you
Yeah,
know,
I love it.
I have to be able to, okay, well, this isn't going anywhere. I'm going to drop that down. And usually when I'm like working from home, I've got so many books around me. It looks chaotic, like just my headset's going with something. I usually listen to a lot of speeches because I was a very, very nervous kid, quote unquote, which, we've got different terms for that these days. But I just thought I was nervous, right? I'd get like, I used to call it stage fright. It was like, Alex, you're putting your hand up in class to answer 2 + 2. You shouldn't be like shaking and pink in the face. But speaking in front of people was never my forte, right? Like English was never my forte. So I usually like surround myself with a lot. Like I used to make myself read all the time. Schedule at the moment it's not allowing that, so that's fine. Now I listen to it. I listen to a lot of speeches. But I do a lot, man. Like I'm always writing. I'm always writing. I've actually got my second book above me here, which came out recently. It's a big one. It's that's a poem a day for a year.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's just trying to highlight how someone's mental state can peak and trough throughout a year. They're not like perfectly aligned, right? So the first one wasn't January 1st. I jumbled them up a little bit. But it's pretty much aligned. And if you look at the bigger picture, 10 years time, you'll read the first one, that one, and then whichever one comes next, you'll understand what I'm getting at. Everything for me is always a bigger picture. Like I don't mind what shit I live in or work for or whatever right now, as long as we're going towards something, as we alluded to before, right? With leaving home and trying to help my family, my sisters, my brothers, etc., etc. Yeah, I've always got to be doing something. Like I love coaching. Like I'm obsessed with coaching. Like I've actually kind of the fire's rekindled, and I'm like, I can feel my brain just taking over. I'm like, Alex, like it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Stop like thinking about how you can deliver one sentence, differently from class to class, right? And I'm like, I love it. I love coaching anything, but I take on the Olympic weightlifting and coach through that mainly, with some CrossFit style, general physical preparedness, or GPP as we call it, just kind of average Joe fitness. Yeah, I do that. I do this. I love this. Talking to
Yeah, I
people
love
all
this.
over the world,
Yeah.
let's just chat some shit. Like, where are you? What do you do? Like, talk to me, like, let's just kind of do our thing. And then there's kind of one in the pipeline, which, like I alluded to before, we're going into schools and talking to kids, which is another reason why I listen to a lot of speeches, because, I guess I got to give them, which is really weird. Like it really weirds me out. Like I was a little bit of a PE teacher back home. I did that for a little while. So it's kind of the same, but I'm not teaching them anything. I'm kind of just walking in and be like, hey, I got a weird accent. It's okay to like cry. And I kind of am as wide as a door frame, but also write poetry. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do type stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of like that on the side. So I'm always doing something, man, there's always something on the go, but that's kind of me in a nutshell. Always working.
I love it.
But
I think that's beautiful.
I don't see it as work, like us having a conversation now. I'll think about it for like constantly for about 2 weeks. I'd be like, oh, that one thing. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna either meditate on that, think about that, change that, or whatever. Coaching lights me up. Don't get me wrong, it'll drain the hell out of me. I'll finish, I'll be like, I need to go to sleep. And then honestly, writing keeps me sane. I found that like if I'm gonna make it to the end, right, of this life, I always need to work out and I always need to write. If I like drop one of them, I go insane. Like not good. Like I got a real quick tendency to I honestly think it's hereditary, but also I've had a shit load of concussions. So I get depressed like real easy, like real easy. And I've noticed if I'm doing something with no purpose, like I'm just working for the man or labor or whatever it is, right? I'm literally 10 minutes and then I'm like, there's a knife there, there's a sharp object, there's a crane or whatever. Like it can get pretty rough sometimes and it can just spiral and boom, you're right at the bottom. So I've highlighted that of like, oh, okay, I need to be working towards something. These are my two pillars from opposite ends of the spectrum, and everything in the middle is a-okay, and we're just going to work towards it.
So interesting. So that's exactly what Freud said. So a lot of my background is clinical psychology, and Freud believed that if we don't have school or a job, we're all going to go insane. Like we need that order to stay well, essentially. So I think I think there's a lot of truth in what Freud said, but it's not necessarily school or work for all of us. And it's just finding the remedy that works best for you. But thanks for sharing that. It sounds like you found what works.
I mean, you asked me a question, mate. I'm going to respect you and this space that we created for a conversation. I'm going to tell you the right answer. The only weird thing is we click the button and people can listen like a fly on the wall, which is kind of weird. But, we're here, we're doing something. Yeah, I think so. And I think so with a lot of dudes, like I said, I grew up west side of Manchester, like a lot of violence. And I think the male man is just too erratic. We bounce off the walls. We're absolutely bonkers. And some decisions that are made, even subconsciously, you can kind of look back and you're like, what is that? Why would you even think that is a good idea? Like that's idiotic, So I think it's really important for men to keep themselves between two fine lines, of like, well, that is a no-go, and that is a no-go. So I'm gonna do this and go forwards. And you've got to do something that humbles you every day, you know, like a 20 kilo bar is always going to be a 20 kilo bar. You know, I'm going to feel good or I'm going to feel shit, and it's still going to be 20 kilos. Right. So like, that's something that humbles me. I was like, oh, fuck. Like if I load it up to if I load it up to 100 or 200 kilos, it's going to be the same, you know, so I have to address it the same. So it humbles me like every day.
I imagine it's also really grounding.
Oh, 100%. You know, I've been lifting weights for um 12 years, 13 years, 12 years, 13 years. Yeah. Holy shit. Coming up to 14 years. Um, that like way I lift them has changed. Yeah, granted, but it's been who I am. You know what I mean? I'm like, listen, man, like sometimes I just gotta go work out. You know, even if I just need to go for a hike. And it's quite funny because sometimes I can't put the finger on the emotion that is going on, right? And I can't quite write it down. So I walk up this hill, right, and it's a beautiful, beautiful view at the top, and here in Christchurch or whatever. And I'm not even 5 minutes in, mate, and I'm in the notes in my phone. I'm like, I've got it. Boom, written it down. I just need my heart rate up a little bit, you know. I just need to like move around, and you feel lighter, you feel free, you feel grounded. 100%, you feel grounded.
Yeah, I think we get a lot better ideas when we're moving. I think they like, and also to what you're saying, it's, you know yourself. And I think it's like the greatest gift of all for humans to just know who they truly are. And I have a belief system that a lot of people don't, right? They don't really know them. They don't know thyself. And it's the same thing for accounting of the soul. It's the same thing with why we cry in certain yoga poses, or we feel bad after a conversation, even though like what was it about the conversation? Was it that I didn't feel seen? Was it that it was too intense? Was it that it wasn't intense enough? Was it that, and everything that you know yourself that you need to go hiking to kind of drop into your body and dive deeper into what's lying beneath the surface. That's exactly why I created Soul Immersion, which is the program that I'm sharing with the world right now that begins mid-May. Because so much is going on all around us, and it's I first of all, you need to go to Bali, so we need to talk about Bali at some point. But I studied with a lot of false gurus. That's like a lot of my stories. I met like a lot of gurus in India who are more interested in just like fucking around than kind of sharing the wisdom. So I've been teaching meditation for the last 8 years and built this business around it, shifted into business coaching to help spiritual entrepreneurs launch and scale their business, because I think rich spiritual entrepreneurs is of highest good for the world. And this whole spiritual program that I'm bringing into the world is using these very sacred active meditations, but also positive psychology, which is the science of happiness, integrating both to understand why you are the way you are, right? Like, why do I crave my grandma's chicken soup when I'm feeling depressed? Why do I want a glass of red wine at the end of the day when I didn't even really do much? Why is this one relationship so draining? Why do I just feel different, right? Why do I feel different every day? Or for men and women, different phases of our hormones or our cycles. Because men and women women are on the infradian rhythm and men are on the circadian, which is more the rise and fall of the sun. So I think all of these things are just, we're waking up to the wisdom of who we truly are. And sometimes we can ground it. Like, I mean, you probably know this since you come from a blue collar area, but the reason we work 9 to 5 is because that was the lifespan of machinery, right? There's no like brilliance behind it. And then that was usually men. So men started working 9 to 5, although right now, especially in the States, it's like 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's like how much people are working.
Yep.
And that's like the rise and fall of the sun, which is also the rise and fall of testosterone, which is why it's so common to wake up in the morning with like be woken up with an erection, because that's like the rise of testosterone.
Mhm.
But for women, we have 4 different phases in our cycle. We have follicular, ovulation, luteal, and menstrual, but we were only taught about menstrual when we grew up. So we live in this society where people don't even know how their bodies really work. We have these hormones by the age of 13, like 10, 11, 12, 13 for women, 18, 19, 20, 21 for men. We're never taught how to tap into our bodies. We're anxious, depressed, insecure. So we start meditating or weightlifting or hiking. We don't realize the food that we're eating is poisoning us, like gluten, dairy, corn, soy, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, but don't ask me to give up coffee. Yeah. Or booze. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's so funny. I never eat gluten or dairy, and I'm in Italy right now and I'm eating like only gluten and dairy. But it's so healing because the food's just different here, right? It's not the same food. Like our food is such shit in the States, but it's a lot better here. So much better.
European food is different, man. Like it's even different. European food is better than the ones in the UK. Like everything's pellet fed, like and steroids and all that type of nonsense. Like I came here and I thought the egg yolk was supposed to be yellow. Right? I was like, I cracked an egg in a pan, it came out orange, and I was like, what the fuck is that? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, why is it orange? It's like that's an egg, dude. I was like, no. Egg's supposed to be yellow, pal. I was like, no.
Orange. Isn't that crazy?
Dude, I made it 23 years.
Yeah.
No idea. I was like, it's supposed to be yellow.
Yeah.
You teach them in school. Oh yeah, yellow yolk. It's just wrong.
I mean, that's just I was like trying to show that to my parents. My parents are like, I don't see a difference. I'm like, one is yellow, one's like neon orange. It's beautiful.
I think the biggest one for me is the tomatoes in the Mediterranean. Like the tomatoes are insane. Like for like a snack, I'd slice those bad boys up, put a little bit of salt on it, and that's it. I'm good.
Yeah, I say this all the time. I don't eat tomatoes. Excuse me. I don't eat tomatoes in the States. Like they taste like shit. But they're amazing here. Like it's so much better.
Like I'm getting jealous. Like I'm gonna get on a little rubber dinghy. I'm gonna roll back to fucking Europe.
Alex, you need to go to Bali.
Why? Talk to me about Bali.
It is a playground for people like us. It is the
crazy people.
Yeah. Yes. For people who see the world differently, for people who are like ready to for people who want to live their best life, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to live it. I think that's it. That's like, if you are down to live your best life, you're probably, already kind of maybe shifting your perspective of the world around you. But Bali is like, first of all, you're in a island, a Hindu island. It's a Muslim country, but Bali is Hindu, with people who think similar to us. And I think that's like the most shocking thing, right? Like you walk into a space, everybody's eating well, everybody's manifesting, everybody's working on themselves, everyone's down to meditate, everyone's down to do yoga, everyone's writing their own books, everybody is down for poetry, already has like a poetic practice. The food is insane, really good surfing if you surf, really good CrossFit gyms, really amazing for entrepreneurs. It is so cheap. You live like a god for nothing. I mean, we were living in extreme luxury. I mean, I booked like the most luxurious like villas and hotels, and our most expensive one was, I think, $45 or $60 a night. I mean, just the food alone, like just to go there and eat, I think is the best. But it's just a playground. It's a place where any idea you've ever had, you can like test it out there, and everyone's down for it. Or it's it's an elevated consciousness, and you're so close being in New Zealand. I mean, you're much closer than the majority of the world, and they just opened up. And we had to quarantine in a hotel room for 7 days, which was wild. But I'm talking to you, and I just feel like, and my other Manchester friend I met her in Bali. I think you would thrive there.
Mm. I'm all about it. I'm all about going to new places. I'm obsessed with culture, like real culture. Like take me to, the places that the locals go, where it's deep rooted in history and all that type of nonsense. Like I'm upset. I'm like, wow. Like, yeah, let's do what you guys do, like this blonde kid, like blue eyes like the ocean. Like I'm just like, look, let's do it. I think it's so beautiful. We can connect over these things, despite physical differences, right? And despite language barriers, age, whatever. Like it doesn't really matter. You strip all those barriers down, and you're like, oh, okay, the custom is this. Okay, let's do that. I'm in your backyard. You're not going to be doing my culture. If we go to Manchester, yeah, okay, we'll bump shoulders, we'll get a little bit of fisticuffs going on. Yeah, it's just because that's the culture over there. We start chatting shit, no problem. But like over here, you might need to be a little bit more respectful or whatever. Like I'm all about it, new culture, new people, new places, new stories. I'm all about stories, like writing stories, making stories, telling jokes, telling stories. I think that's the cycle of life, and we kind of pass it on, verbally, physically, like from diagrams, and I just think it's a rad ride, and it's such a cool ride. You're like, wow, okay, this is new. Let's figure it out. Let's go. Oh, okay, it ended up being shit. Great. I got a story to tell.
Yeah.
Oh, one time I was backpacking in Eastern Europe, it's just like, you got a story to tell. It makes a great conversation when you're sharing a whiskey with a lady at a bar,
Yeah. I love whiskey too.
Scotch or Irish?
But
Don't say, if you say bourbon, I'm gonna leave.
Scotch.
Wise.
Wise. I think I'm safe in that one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's full circle based on kind of where we started our conversation in the beginning. When we're talking about stories, I mean, that's the Torah, that's the Bible, that's the Quran, that's the Bhagavad Gita. Like, what is organized religion? What is spirituality? It's these stories that were passed down l'dor v'dor from generation to generation. And I think even like you and I chit-chatting right now, we became who we are because of, things went wrong, right? Or like things maybe went wrong and then they went right and then they shifted and then we kind of figured something out, so we feel like we have to share it. Like, I believe if anybody wants to change their life, they need to start meditating today, and they need to start understanding their circadian or infradian rhythm. Those are like two things that I live by. Something that you and I are kind of talking to, it's that's like so on top of my mind that I feel like is just woven into this conversation is, are you down to wake up, right? Are you down to make the most out of this life? Are you down to do the deep work? Are you down to show up? Like, if you are going to be here in this, matrix, or like in this physical earth, are you going to do whatever you can to like live in your truth? And if you are not, then you're kind of going to experience this world in a different way than maybe God intended or the universe intended. So it's just the question right now is to wake up or not to wake up.
And neither one is right or wrong,
Neither one is right or wrong, but if you believe in reincarnation or if you believe in spiritual development, it's like, if you are here to learn a lesson, and like that's karma, or that's a karma burn, right? What goes around comes around. And necessarily, it's not even if you were a good or bad person in this life, it's were you a good or bad person in previous lives. So this is more, I would say, Buddhism or Hinduism Like, especially the conversation around reincarnation, it's if you don't like you, if you're choosing your parents or if you're choosing this life, and you avoid this, like the same thing happens to you over and over and over again. Like your confrontation with authority happens over and over and over again. If you don't learn that lesson in this life, you're going to have the same drama in your next life. So it's kind of just like, if you think of, I always think of like Mario, like Nintendo. It's when you learn the lesson, you get to the next level. So yeah, that's the game we're playing in right now.
I find it so interesting, man, because the way I live my life is by the only thing I know is I know nothing. And that's pretty much it, right? I'm like, okay, I believe this to be true with everything I have now, right? Tomorrow I'm going to be different from this conversation. The day after I'm going to be different from whatever happened tomorrow, and like, oh, okay, this is what I kind of believe, or maybe, I don't know, it could be right, it could be wrong. There's no definitives. And I'm like, oh, this person and has this view. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I don't agree with it, but that's great. If they want to live their life that way, fan dabby dozy. And personally, it frees me with a lot of binary solidarity of like, no, this is the way. Like the Mandalorian, this is the way. I was like, there's many ways to skin a cat, my friend. We can go over it, we can go under it, we can go around it, or we can run through the frigging wall. There's many ways to do it. And I'm open to learning them all, like, yeah, fuck it, why not? We're here once, we're all gonna fuck up, great, let's learn from it, let's figure it out, let's create some sort of weird hybrid, let's learn this, that, and the other. Oh, that's not for me, I tried salsa dancing, kind of want to try it again, but I also was there having like pretty much an anxiety attack. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, holy fuck, I am out of my depth here, man. I'm like, where's a barbell? Like, let me just like squat or something. I'm like, I'm in these weird shoes. Everybody knows what they're doing. There's a middle-aged man just like spinning these ladies around. I'm like, I'm intimidated. But you gotta try some things, and if you don't like it, great. Like, move on.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, I think so. You said, was it Freud who said people need school and work, or purpose and something? They need purpose, right? Going back to the two lines.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why there's a lot of reasons why this podcast is called, I'd change the name to the Nomadic Podcast, right? And one of the main reasons is I think everybody needs to go on like some sort of nomadic trip, whether it's once or whether it's frequently. I think people just need to piss off on their own, right? Just go in the corner, sort yourself out, come back when you sorted, right? Because when things get a little bit too much, or I wake up one morning and be like, okay, I'm out, and I just say I go wherever the wind takes me, and the wind will then take me somewhere else. I think you learn so much about yourself and how you would like to interact with the world, right? You're like, oh, I'm actually going a little bit crazy because I've not spoke to anybody in like 4 days, right? And I'm sat on the same frigging rock, drawing or writing or throwing stones or whatever, like just kind of twiddling my thumbs, like, ooh, I'm remembering things I've forgotten from 18 years ago, right? And you're like, I hated that. It's like, great, kill that person who did it. You don't have to be that person anymore, like, as in metaphorically speaking, of course, not like condoning going out and finding someone. I mean, like, the person that you were doing that thing doesn't have to be the person you are today, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow. Like, you figure out so much about yourself. I think people just need to piss off on their own, man. Like, just go do something, figure yourself out, come back. It's like what you say to a child, right? Go sit on the naughty step, figure yourself out, calm yourself down, come back when you can talk nicely. I think adults need to do the same.
Yeah. Who are you without your everyday rituals? Who are you with like we're so scheduled and we're so programmed. We wake up, we go to the bathroom, we have coffee, we do our work, we have lunch, we come home, like miracles occur outside of your comfort zone. So if you want to know who you really are, take yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Mm.
I always say my best friend right now is about to go on her first solo trip ever in her whole life. She's
Wow.
about to be 31. And I'm so excited for her. It was like kind of the best phone call ever when she told me that, because you have to leave room for the miracle, but you got to go out of your way to make sure that a miracle can fit in, right? Because miracles are, which is just a shifted perspective from fear to love, or it's just a feeling state that's kind of a more elevated feeling state. And if we're doing the same thing over and over and over again and everything's so regimented, there's not room for the miracle.
Mm.
So I think traveling, every new country you go to is like a new master's degree, with such a Western way of saying it, but every new place you go and you learn more about yourself, the foods that you're eating, the people you meet, you're making room for a 2.0 version of yourself. So yeah, it's so healing. It's so transformational. It's so necessary. I think it's mandatory.
Mm.
And it doesn't need to be expensive. You can hop in the car and road trip and just go book an Airbnb a couple hours away from your house and just have like a little silent weekend or just time with yourself and just see what happens.
Oh, do what I do and sleep in your car.
Beautiful.
And just figure it out. Like, gun to your head, you'll figure it out. Like, I think people need a little bit more confidence in their ability to
Yeah.
survive. Like, you
Yeah.
you are a bad motherfucker. You got out of bed this morning. That's the hardest thing you could do. It's
Yeah. You woke
comfy.
up.
The alarm's going off. You've turned it off because no one puts it on the other side of the room. Let's be honest. Those are the
Ah,
crazy people. I don't want to hear it for longer than 2 seconds. But then you got yourself out of bed. I was like, great. Like, the rest of it's easy.
ah.
So here's a question. Who are you?
I am a spiritual being having a human experience. It is like who I am. Um, I am also a writer and a meditation teacher and a business coach. I'm also someone who tries as much as possible to connect to original thought. I'm a wife, I'm a sister, a daughter, a really good friend to my people. But I'm a guide. I'm guide for anybody who really wants to do the deep work. If you want to show up and you want to make the most out of this current life, this current human experience, then I would love to have somebody in my circle.
Mm. I always find the people who answer, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, to be the most fascinating human beings you can come
Yeah.
across, right? Because I'm always like, this is a person who's asked themselves a lot of difficult questions, right? And some of them they've still not come up with the answers to, and some of them they've scratched out the answers and redefined it. And great, we all change. Change is the only constant in life. But I just find people like you and I so fascinating. It blows my mind. It's like, oh, who are you? Alex. Like, okay. No, what, like, who are you? I was like, I'm a coach. I was like, no, that's what you do, pal. Like, who are you? I was like, well, I don't know. I'm like, okay. Um, I'm gonna go have my beer on my own. Uh, because I got fireworks going on upstairs, so we don't really need to communicate that much. Leave me my pen and I'm all good. Like, I don't even need paper. I'll write poetry on my hand or a napkin. Don't worry about it.
That's really sweet.
I got 3 questions though. What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
What other people think about me is none of my business.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's people are so afraid to live their truth, to live their most authentic life because they care too much about what other people think. But it ruins your life when you care too much
Yes.
about what other people think. Yeah, it's a tear. It's like it stunts your growth. So it's a hard one. It's something I say over and over and over again because I care so much about, really, I care what my siblings and my parents think. But aside from that, I'm just gonna go for it. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Mm. That's a good one. And I think a lot of people need to adopt that, especially in the social media type generation.
Yeah.
What's the worst piece of life advice you ever received?
Um, I guess there's two things that come to mind. The first one was try to fit in. And the second one is if you have it, flaunt it. If you don't have it, go get it. And I think it's both are just, they just don't resonate anymore. They did resonate at one point, but they don't anymore. I think fitting in we're not meant to. We're not meant to.
Yeah, a line that always knocks me for six that came to my head when you said that was, we're all alone in this together.
Yeah.
You know, like
We're
that.
all alone in this together.
Yeah, that always sits me down. And even though I'm thinking about the same things, like it always gets me. It always gets me. I'm like, why are we trying to fit in, man? It doesn't make any sense. You know, we are all very similar, but at the same time, like unique. We've got a lot of differences, you know, and just fucking celebrate that. Give someone a hug and a high five and have a beer or something. You know, life's too short. Fuck it. Have wine and cheese. You know, be fighting all night if you're lactose intolerant. It doesn't matter, you know. Don't quote me on that. Last question. 3 words you tell your younger self.
Be kind to yourself.
You can't fall.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Did I cheat?
No. You can't fall. You can't fall. It's fine. It's not like a strict quiz or anything. You know, I'm not going to give you a test score back. If you do, I'd get an F anyway. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I would also say, you know, be kind to yourself, and like miracles are on the way. Yeah.
And patience, right? It's definitely a virtue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ongoing practice.
Got that right. Erin, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for doing
thanks
this.
for having me.
During
I'm so happy to be in your world. Thanks for reaching out.
Always, you know, and you need to make it down to New Zealand now. You know,
Yes,
or maybe we'll go to Bali.
I really do. I really want to get to New Zealand. Definitely.
It's good, man. Like both islands are completely different topography wise and climate wise. You know, I think the South Island is subarctic, and then the North Island is it's like a Pacific island, right? You know, there's like palm trees everywhere, and I'm like, bloody hell, it's humid as hell. But yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Like the natural wonders they got here, the beaches they got here, like it's all insane. I remember driving over a rickety old bridge and looking down at a river and thought it was polluted because it was blue. You know, I'm like, who put some, you know, chlorine or something in the water? Like it's not supposed to look like that. I was like, no, Alex. Like, I ended up finding out later, and I was like, no, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's like, wow. Okay. You know, there's no shopping trolleys. It's not black. You know, there's not a body bobbing up and down in it. Like Manchester's weird. Chicago's probably the same, but it's a big city, you know, like these things happen. But yeah, definitely if you need to drop off the grid a little bit, reset, like coming to the bottom right hand corner of the world, go to Middle Earth, that's definitely the place to go.
Amazing.
All right, mate. Thank you so much.
Alex, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll speak soon, and travel safe wherever you go to next.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.